I'm Miriam. Sitting in my opulent office on the top floor of Anderson Tower, I watch as my family members, dejected and downtrodden, file out of the converted shed on the estate grounds. Their heads are bowed, and the air around them is thick with humiliation. The once mighty have fallen, and I am the one who brought them down. It all started years ago on a Christmas night. As snow gently blanketed the Anderson estate, I pulled up in my unassuming Ford Focus, a far cry from the flashy cars owned by my family members. The sprawling Anderson mansion, with its expensive holiday lights, loomed ahead like a symbol of the false wealth and arrogance that had defined my family for so long. My brother, Ryan, a 35-year-old who thought money grew on trees, and my sister, Olivia, 33, who was obsessed with designer labels, had already parked their Lamborghini and Mercedes in the circular driveway. Their cars were like arrogant sentinels, announcing their so-called success. My mother, Mrs. Anderson, was a woman who always wore a mask of propriety, but beneath it, she was a snob. She stood at the doorway, her voice carrying an all-too familiar blend of disappointment and forced cheer. "Miriam, you finally made it. Everyone's already here. We were about to start the gift exchange without you." Inside, the grand living room was a riot of expensive decorations. Ryan and Olivia lounged on their imported French leather sofas, their spouses decked out in jewelry that could feed a small village. Ryan, with his smug grin, adjusted his Patek Philippe watch and sneered, "Still driving that economy car? My dealership could get you something more fitting for an Anderson." I replied calmly, "I'm quite content with what I have," and settled into a corner seat. My father, Mr. Anderson, a stern and proud man who thought he knew everything about business, emerged from his study, poring over papers that I recognized as property statements. Little did he know that I had seen those numbers from the other side of the deal hours ago. "Let's get to the gifts," my mother announced. "Miriam, dear, we had to adjust your present this year due to budget constraints. You understand, don't you?" Olivia let out a stifled laugh. "Yes, the market has been so unpredictable. Ryan and I had to settle for smaller villas in the south of France this year." I quietly checked my phone. Another notification popped up. 3 more mortgage payments in my portfolio were overdue. As my mother clapped her hands to signal the start of the gift-giving, Ryan went first. He unwrapped the keys to a new luxury speedboat. Olivia received the deed to a private beach house. Then it was my turn. Ryan stood up with an exaggerated flourish and led everyone to the window. "For our dear sister, something perfect for her lifestyle." There, in the back garden, stood the old tool shed, now with a crude bow attached. "We thought you could turn it into one of those tiny houses you're always talking about," Olivia giggled. "It's more your style anyway." I kept my voice steady, even as my phone lit up with another alert indicating the successful acquisition of their property management company. "The shed. Well, it's what you could manage," I said calmly. My father gruffly added, "If you'd gone into real estate like your siblings instead of whatever it is you do." I discreetly opened my banking app. Interesting timing. "Ryan, isn't your mansion's mortgage payment due today?" His eyes widened in shock. "What? How did you?" I merely smiled as I watched the color drain from his face. My mother frowned. "Miriam, that's hardly appropriate dinner conversation." I stood up and looked out at the shed. "Let's talk about property values instead. Like how the Anderson estate market has been changing lately." My father's papers slipped from his hands. "What do you know about the estate market?" Just then, my phone buzzed again. The final acquisition was confirmed. All Anderson properties were now under the control of Aurora International, my company. I traced the property line on the window, a line that only I knew had just changed hands. Oh, just what I read in the business section. "By the way, has anyone checked the ownership of your property management company lately?" The grandfather clock chimed, marking the moment I had been waiting for years. As if on cue, phones around the room began buzzing simultaneously. Emergency notifications from Anderson Properties Management flashed on the screens. "What's going on?" Olivia's husband stammered. "It says, our property manager has changed." Ryan frantically dialed his financial advisor, pacing around the Christmas tree. "What do you mean by ownership transfer?" "I own that building." I settled back into my chair, sipping my hot cocoa and watching the chaos unfold. My father's hands trembled as he shuffled through his papers, scattering property statements across the marble floor. "There must be some mistake," my mother insisted, her perfectly manicured fingers clutching her tablet. "The Anderson portfolio can't just change hands." I pulled out my own tablet. "Actually, it can." "Shall I explain?" I projected my screen onto the large TV that was usually used for their boastful vacation slideshows. A corporate structure appeared, with Aurora International at the top. I continued, "While you were all busy buying boats and beach houses, I was buying something else, your mortgages. Specifically, all of your mortgages." Ryan scoffed, but his voice wavered. "You work from a dingy basement apartment?" I smiled. "That basement apartment is the corporate headquarters of Aurora International, registered under a subsidiary. I bought the building 5 years ago, just like I bought the bank that holds your Lamborghini loans, Ryan." Olivia's champagne glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. "But you never had any capital." I pulled up more data. "Remember that small online business you mocked 7 years ago? It wasn't just a simple website. It was a revolutionary property management platform. Every major real estate firm wanted it. I sold the patent for $1. $2 billion but kept the controlling interest." My father collapsed into his chair. $1. $2 billion? "That was just the beginning," I said, switching to another screen. "While you were bragging about your vacation homes, I was acquiring the companies that manage them. While you were showing off your cars, I was buying the luxury dealerships. Property by property, company by company." More notifications lit up phones around the room. Ryan's voice rose in panic. "The French villa, the Miami penthouse, all under Aurora International Management?" I nodded. "Yes, along with Olivia's beach house, Dad's commercial properties, and even this mansion." "Mom, check your mortgage statement." "It was processed this morning." My mother's face went pale. "This mansion?" I explained, "Since none of you bothered to read the fine print in your loan documents, the payments will increase." My father finally understood and whispered, "Those convenient refinancing deals last year." "That was you?" "Exactly. I wanted to see how long you'd rely on borrowed success," I replied. Olivia stood up, shaking. "But you're our sister." "You can't." I interrupted her. "Can't what?" "Build something real instead of living on credit? Create value instead of just spending it?" I checked my watch. "Ryan, your Lamborghini dealership's ownership transfer should be finalizing right about now." Just then, his phone rang. His face crumpled as he listened to his lawyer. I stood up. "Now, about that shed you so generously gave me." I pressed a button on my tablet, and the garden lights illuminated the small building. "I think I'll keep it as a reminder of how this all began." My mother asked, "How what began?" I replied, "The greatest property acquisition in Anderson family history. While you were giving me a shed, I was buying every piece of real estate you thought you owned. Merry Christmas." The room fell into stunned silence, broken only by the continuous buzzing of phones announcing more ownership transfers. My empire, once hidden, was now in full view, and their world of false wealth was crumbling before their eyes. "One more thing," I said as I headed towards the door. "We should discuss the terms of those mortgage payments. I think the shed would make an excellent office for these discussions." In the days following Christmas, a huge shift occurred in the Anderson family. I sat in my real office, watching the news headlines scroll across my screens, Aurora International reveals true ownership, mystery billionaire emerges, Anderson family properties among thousands under new management, real estate's new queen. How Miriam Anderson built a $20 billion empire in secret. My assistant entered with the morning reports. Your family is here for the 9 a.m. meeting, Miss Anderson. They're waiting in the shed. I smiled and checked the security feed. The converted garden shed, now my satellite office, was deliberately made to be comfortable yet humble. Through the cameras, I could see them squirming on simple chairs. No more French leather sofas. How long have they been waiting? I asked. Since 7 a.m. And your brother tried using his old building access codes twice, my assistant replied. I gathered my files and walked to the mansion grounds. The shed, with state-of-the-art technology hidden behind its simple walls, had become a symbol of my ultimate victory. They stood up as I entered, something they had never done before. My father's custom-tailored suits were replaced by off-the-rack clothes. My mother's designer bags were nowhere to be seen. Ryan and Olivia looked like they hadn't slept in days. Let's discuss your futures, I said as I sat behind the simple desk. I've reviewed your financials. They're in a bad state. Ryan began, his voice lacking its usual arrogance. Miriam, we're family. Surely we can work something out. I pulled up their payment histories. Was I family when you made me stay in the basement at parties? When you mocked my business? When you gave me this shed? Olivia dabbed her eyes. We didn't know. I interrupted her. You didn't know that while you were buying luxuries, I was buying companies. While you were piling up debt, I was accumulating assets. I turned my laptop around. Your combined mortgages total $55 million, and they're all currently in default. My father stepped forward. We can sell some properties. I reminded him, you don't own any properties to sell. But I'm willing to offer you an opportunity. I distributed folders with new contracts. They opened them with trembling hands. These are employment contracts, my mother whispered. Yes. Aurora International needs property managers. Who better than the former owners? You'll start at the entry level, of course, and work your way up, learning the business properly. Entry level? Ryan choked. But I ran my own company. I corrected him, you ran it into debt. I bought it. There's a big difference. The shed's hidden screens came to life, showing their new company roles and modest salaries. Gone were the expense accounts, luxury cars, and private jets. I said, you have two choices. Sign the contracts, keep your homes as renters, and learn how to build a real estate empire. Or don't sign and face bankruptcy proceedings. Either way, this shed will remind you every day of what happens when you underestimate me. One by one, they signed the contracts with hands that once wore gold rings and signed blank checks. They became employees of the sister they had dismissed. Welcome to Aurora International, I said as I stood up. Report to HR tomorrow. Standard dress code. No designer labels. As I turned to leave, my father finally found his voice. The shed. You're keeping it? I smiled. Of course. It's the only property you ever gave me that wasn't drowning in debt. Besides, I pressed a hidden button, revealing monitors that tracked global real estate markets. It's where I do my best work. By the way, how do you feel about managing properties in Canada? We just acquired some great developments there. Their faces fell as they realized their new reality. The shed, their once mock gift, had become the symbol of their downfall and my rise. Oh, and one more thing, I paused at the door. Those weekly family dinners you always held to show off your wealth? We'll still have them right here in the shed. I find it helps keep things in perspective. I left them there, surrounded by the evidence of their failed attempts at success, as I basked in my quiet triumph. Through the window of my office in Anderson Tower, I watched them leave the shed, defeated, finally understanding that true power isn't about flaunting wealth but about silently building an empire until the perfect moment to reveal it. The shed stood as a monument to their arrogance and my patience, and now, I owned their futures.